Hello, everyone. This was a very unexpected. I woke up this morning and I had saved this show, and so I felt like not the show, but this news article. So I felt like it was important to bring awareness to this. I'll be doing another show later on afternoon, after lunchtime, after 12. But this is very sick. So let me go ahead and start off saying it's Franklin pastor Daryl Hayes, age 50. He faces 6 counts of sexual exploitation of a minor. I'll go ahead and do the Bible verse that I usually like because a lot of people hate talking about God, talking about the Bible, but it had not been for him, I would not be surviving today. Hey there, glad to see you, Jackie. Like in Matthew 18, verse 6, but whoso shall offend one of these little ones which believe in me, it were better for him that a millstone were hanged about his neck, that he were drowned in the depths of the sea. And I go down here to make sure the copyright disclaimer right here. Under Section 107 of the Copyright Act 1976, allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, scholarship, and research. How are you doing there, Jackie? I'm doing pretty good so far today. It's going to be a busy day because I got another live after lunchtime. The other one's scheduled, but this one wasn't. This was just all of a sudden I seen this article and I said, I better get this out there. I wanted to bring the awareness to the people on what's going on. There's been a lot of different things in the news in Franklin, Tennessee, too. You're quite welcome. It's always good to see you, and I'm glad you're here to support this as well. I'll go ahead and share the screen. I'm glad they fixed it back to the original, how the original was, so I'm really glad about that. Okay, see my screen yet? All right. What I want to go ahead instead of reading this first, I'm going to have to change my setting where you'll be able to hear these guys right here. I got to go right here. And it's sick when they go and do this. And this is somebody that's in the care. He's a preacher.
Pastor Daryl Hayes uploaded videos of minors engaged in sexual activity according to an indictment, and he allegedly did it on his church Wi-Fi. Thank you for watching News 2 at 4. I'm Mark Kelly. Wilson County deputies say they caught him thanks to a tip from the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. Nikki McGee sat down with the agency today to learn how they're tracking criminals like this all around the country.
The details are hard to stomach. A 50-year-old pastor now behind bars for having sexual videos involving minors. What's more is these videos were uploaded while using his church's internet. And not once, but 6 different times, according to court documents.
Anytime that we become aware of someone who's in a position of trust, who is really a pillar of the community, someone you wouldn't think would be actively engaged in this type of activity, it's more disappointing than it is shocking.
Daryl Hayes is now fired from Berry Chapel Church of Christ, but he may have never been caught if it weren't for a cyber tip Williamson County deputies got from the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children.
At NECMEC, we receive anywhere from 80 to 100,000 reports a day related to individuals who are disseminating or trading child sexual abuse material.
Suspects might think they're being discreet by watching this content at work or on any public Wi-Fi away from their home internet. But there's one problem.
Companies here in the United States, there is a law that requires them, if they become aware of individuals who are disseminating child sexual abuse material on their platforms, they must make a report to our CyberTip line, and then we in turn provide this information to law enforcement for review.
Tech providers like Google, Dropbox, and Twitter are also required to report such content on their site, and anyone with a tip can call in.
We're able to make a difference in the lives of children that we'll never meet. We're able to prevent future victimizations forever occurring. So it's highly impactful, highly rewarding, and as you can imagine, very challenging and difficult work at the same time.
Berry's Chapel Church of Christ, where Hayes worked, tells News 2 that the church condemns sexual immorality and they hold their leaders to a high standard of accountability. If you have a tip that you would like to report, you can do so at report.cybertip.org.
We're serving you. News.
Okay, I just knew that I had to get this out there, after I saw this. And hi, Kiki, it's good to see you. And what's sad is that's the same religious thing that I was in, and they used to do pretty good when I was a kid, when I was a teenager, basically. Somewhat when I was adult, then they ostracized me and told me, like a church pastor told me, it was best to let my husband kill me. It's my only way to heaven. That I was such an immoral person. Little things like that. Um, and then when I had some problems with some recently, and when I called a pastor of the church where I had one of the problems, he asked me a question. I'll get to that in a minute. He said, "This is my opinion only." Let's see. If you approve it in any way, I know you know where I'm going with this. They should be brought to the middle of the street and hung. Yeah, just like it says in that. Well, he probably will be basically because of like got in that Bible verse where it says in Matthew 18 verse 6, but whoso shall fill one of these little ones who which believe in me, were better for him that a millstone were hanged about his neck than he would that he be drowned in the depths of the sea. Yeah, was that what was that? It wasn't like the Mormon church. It was just regular Church of Christ. It wasn't like the Jesus Christ of Latter Day Saints. No, but it wasn't the Mormons. But uh, Church of Christ is completely different. They claim that they're non-denominational. And they used to teach differently than what they teach today, in my opinion. And they also, whenever I had talked to the preacher about something, one of the elders had told me, and the elder had told me strictly out on the phone, and then even he said some of the words on the phone, and he typed some of the things. He said the things he typed was stuff like miracles don't happen anymore. And he told me on the phone I didn't need to share my story or tell my story to help others because it's not commanded me in the Bible. It's commanded of these other people, but not of me. So I am to be 100% quiet about, yeah. The Mormons are entirely different than the Church of Christ. But there is Church of Christ of Latter-day Saints that's here also, and all throughout the United States. It's two different things. But he was telling, the elder had told me also that if I was to go and start going to their church, I had to do 100% what he stated. I was to basically stop publications of my book. I was to stop trying to help other people who this happened to. I was to do 100% what they say, what he tells me, what he instructs me. If I don't do 100% what he says, and then he said, remain quiet. Do not talk about the abuse. You are talking bad against God. You're defiling God's name when you're talking about the abuse. I beg to differ. I know God put me here to talk about the abuse. He wants me to talk about this. How dare he say this? So when I called the pastor back to discuss this, he said, that don't sound like the elder, but to work out this, we'll have to have another elder, that elder, and him and me and you to meet at a location. He said, I got a question for you. Would you be willing to say that maybe you looked at it the wrong way or maybe you heard it the wrong way? I said, no, I know exactly the words he used. I will not meet and say that and go down on what I know had happened, what I know I heard. He might go in front of y'all and say that he said this, that I'm going to be the one that's ostracized yet again, and yet I'll be the one that's telling the truth. I will not bow down. I will remain truthful. They hadn't got back with me, so evidently they don't like the fact that I said, I'm not willing to look at it like I heard differently. Either you tell me 100% church and she went to when I was young, knew exactly what that father was doing to us, and they did nothing but shun us. That's horrible, Kiki. I'm so sorry about that. You got that right. Silence of women and children by the sounds of or exactly. They can't tell me that I'm being thing to God that I'm and it's kind of weird. He had told me that me telling my story is defaming God, but then it's also taking the glory away from God. How can that be when I tell people that the only reason I survived was because of God? I didn't survive of my own volition, you know. And he goes, well, miracles don't happen anymore. So now he's trying to say that um, I didn't survive because of God. So that's taking God away from. So he's the one that they're the ones taking God out of the equation, not me. They're the ones that saying that he can't do this and he can't do that. You don't put that, on God. Yeah, I speak the truth and I speak out. I got a friend at Facebook that started a new group for survivors of that's been messed with by the church as well. Welcome to everybody who's here. I'm so glad you're here. Exactly. Exactly. And I think it's a shame. Like when I was a kid and I first realized I wanted to be baptized at age 10, um, I knew that that was right. And then I was 10 or 11. And then I went to Florida and we didn't have that kind of church around. So my stepdad made me go to this other church for my siblings. My siblings went forward to get baptized, and he says, I don't care that you say you've been baptized in this other church. You go forward and you get baptized in that, or I will kill you when you get home. Like I said, my stepfather had been in jail for and was still on probation for murder. So I believed when he said he would kill me, I really believed he would kill me. Um, so I went to church and I was baptized like the rest of them, but I knew I was already baptized, and I don't understand why when you go from one church to another, they want you to baptize and say, well, that shows you're a member here. I said, no, the real baptism is, for remission of sins. It's for Christianity. It's not baptized into a church. And later on, I went back to Alabama from Florida, and then that church class said, well, you got baptized into the Baptist church, so you got to be rebaptized again. So they made me be rebaptized again because they said that when I was baptized into the Baptist church, that took away my saving, me, me being a Christian, whatever, that I had to be rebaptized again. I'm like, what? It's absolutely crazy, y'all. And now, when I talked to them and I said, I've got a question for y'all. So why then do y'all go ahead? I told you, I said God directed me in some of my paths, and I listened to that little voice. And for them to say, well, God don't work that way, I said, then why are you singing these gospel songs up there? And he walks with me and he talks with me a long, life's narrow way. He lives within my heart. Oh, really? That's cool. I'm not going to ostracize anybody for their beliefs or anything. And I'm not going to say that because I was such and such, I just go by, I'm a Christian. Where you attend, as long as you're a Christian and you're trying to do right, that's what matters. We need to keep faith. We need to speak out and help other people that are downtrodden. Like today, later on, 12 something, I'll be having the story on a little girl in Canada whose daddy jumped off of a cliff with her and killed her and killed himself as well. And the mother had warned about him being violent, but the court system would not listen to him. So now they got a law out in Canada. Take Curia's law, I believe it is. But I'll say more about that when I do the next thing. But that's what that's going to be about today. That I had already scheduled that. But when I sing this story, I was like, I've got to talk about this. I've got to let you all know. This is very important on getting the word out about these pedophiles and these predators. Makes you wonder what else happened in that church. Did he go and look at these kids sadistically? Was he going to these families' profiles when he sees these little kids at church? Is he lusting after them when he sees them when each time dressed in their dresses? Is he lusting after these young kids since he's going, using the computers and the internet at that church and downloading child porn? As long as we do good and help people. Exactly. Exactly. For them to, try to stricken me and say, no, God don't demand us to tell our stories, but we use that to help others. That's what we know. We use what we got to be able to help others. And that's what we got is our stories. I've repeated myself several times, but I want to emphasize that. I appreciate y'all for coming and everything, and I just wanted to get this. I pretty good. I'm waiting for it to come up on my screen over here so I can pray to God all the time, and I know He hears me because it goes all the time. I know exactly, exactly. And right now, I do not really attend any. I did go visit one this past week. Um, I got another survivor friend, and I wanted to meet her, and we're talking about making a group for other people that's got PTSD and depression and all for survivors that's been through what we've been through. Just try to help people out. I love marigolds; they're beautiful. You know, a lot of times, the different times when people said that God wasn't there with me, it was kind of funny that some little miracles were happening. I got away from the abusive husband, and with a miracle, and being away from my abusive ex after I divorced and moved away, I started healing. Of course, my bones wasn't being broke every 2 weeks, so I scared the living daylights out of our young children. Creeps saying Jesus won't love them. Jesus loves us more than creeps. Exactly. I remember going to a church when I was in Florida, and I did not understand why he was saying, if you died today, y'all kids, and your bedroom is not cleaned up like your parents told you to do, if you die on your way home from church, you're going straight to hell. These preacher was actually telling children that. So that was teaching them wrongly because yeah, exactly. The more you talk about it, the more you're healing yourself. Exactly. And y'all see this at the bottom of the screen. What I have also, it said, if you have something you'd like to report, you can call 1-800 The Lost or visit report.cybertip.org. I wanted to throw that in there too. I had that. One of my counselors one time after I was doing so good, and then after my divorce, and then of course I moved to a new location, so I had different therapy. Oh man, it was so grueling. She was actually telling me that the things that I said happened to me didn't. She actually told me that I wanted my daddy to be raping me, and that's why I talked about it, and that's why I said that these things happened because I wanted him to do that. Utter BS, y'all. Utter BS. I wasn't about to bury it back under and deny all this stuff happened when I took so long to uncover. It's hard enough, and this was a counselor that that was hired by the state where I had to go through since I no longer have my husband's insurance, I had to fall back on the governmental whatever. And they were telling things like, well, you cannot, if you stop taking the medications, we're going to stop your check. And the thing is, I was allergic to the things. I kept going to the emergency room because I about died, because of being allergic. And the hospital didn't treat me, but then went to my doctor's office and she would treat me. Yes, it is shocking. And did you know there was this one church when I had went to the emergency room and they had took me and it was ice. The roads were icy. I didn't have a coat because they took me and it wasn't that cold when I went to the hospital. So did you know that they ended up? I had tried to call the CSC in Gunnersville, Alabama, and the preacher actually told me on the phone. He says, "I heard about you. You are such an immoral person. We don't want nothing to do with the likes of you in our church." And I'm like, "What? What? What did I do so wrong? What?" So I ended up having to leave the hospital. The hospital says was saying that something else was wrong with me instead of taking an allergic reaction test or allergy test. And so I had to start walking home, and it was icy outside because they wouldn't let me stay in there. And luckily, this couple ended up leaving the hospital without being seen just to go get me when I was fixing to cross this icy causeway. I probably would have froze to death. And had it not been for even a state trooper passed me, and he didn't even stop to ask me if I needed help. He didn't care. But this people from the hospital overheard what they said, and they picked me up, and then they took me home. The next day, my tongue would not even go back in my mouth. It was that bad with my allergic reaction. I was about dead, and I got one of my neighbors to use my car and drive me to the hospital. I wasn't feeling all that good, and she said she had told the nurse practitioner coming there was talking to somebody else. She had her back turned towards me, and then she turned around towards me to go back into the other part to see patients. She saw me. She said, "Get her back there right now. She's about dead." I was thinking, "What?" And then she tried to call to get insurance to approve an ambulance to get me to the hospital because I needed immediate care. Did you know insurance even refused to get me to pay for an ambulance to get me to the hospital? So she had to go ahead and treat me in her office. I was in there for hours and hours, but she treated me till I became okay. So it's a lot of horror stories out there, y'all. But I'm glad my doctor cared. That doctor cared enough for me, that she did what she did. And it's kind of strange too. One of my neighbors, she was going to that same church I just mentioned. Hello, everybody that's here. I see somebody else join. And well, she belonged to that same church and everything. And I would go and visit her and talk to her. And I was shocked when she told me, she said, "I saw you unconscious laying out there in the yard. Your head was at the trunk of a tree. You're like you had slipped and fallen or somebody knocked you out." Okay. She said, and it was raining. And I said, "Well, why didn't you call an ambulance for me? Why didn't you do that?" She goes, "Because I really didn't know your daddy. If I would have known if your daddy was a good guy, then I would say you're a good person. But if your daddy was bad, you're bad." That's the way they looked at it, y'all. So the reason I am looked at so bad is because I had horror parents. I am being ostracized for the fact that my parents were horrible people. Thank you so much. And even in the Bible, it tells you, "Judge not, lest you be not judged. For what measure you judge, someone would end up coming back at them." Basically. So I will speak out. I will get the word out, and a lot of these people are too judging. And you're supposed to be a Christian, and to me, that's not a Christian. Excuse me. I don't want like affiliated with anything when they're totally different. And matter of fact, one of the last places I would attend, let me tell you all about one of the lesson plans, okay? It was a Wednesday night, and we was talking about suicide. How much, and I'm sure a lot of y'all that's been through this have thought of suicide. Well, they had said it's a sin on suicide, right? And this other guy, and it was during a Wednesday night class. It was not during preaching. So this one guy says, "I don't know how anybody could commit suicide." Of course, I raised my hand. He called on me. I said, "Well, I understand it all too well." I said, "I understand it all too well." I said, "I was suicidal. My ex-husband, he used to beat me, and the police said he could hit me how he liked as long as he didn't kill me. The church said, let him kill me. It's my only way to heaven." That I was such an immoral person. Um, and my own family were the way they were, you know. So I didn't really, I felt so alone. I felt like nobody gives a crap about me. Nobody cares. And I just wanted to die. I could not get rid of a lot of when I found out about the baby and everything, what was done about it, it was a little bit too much for me. And I kept trying ways to kill myself, but I didn't know how to deal with it. But I didn't tell the church, about the baby incident, because nobody would have understood about that. But I said, I understand it all too well. And I said, we need to be there for a person, when they're suicidal and stuff. That's what we're supposed to. We're supposed to help the downtrodden. We're not supposed to say, this is a sin, that's a sin. We need to be there for the person, bring them up, uplift them, and all that. And then I said what I said. Everybody in the church turned around and looked at me like I was some crazy fool. And then the preacher goes, well, I'm with this other guy. I don't understand how anybody could want to do a suicide. So right then and there, he chose his side, and he shouldn't have took sides, because in private, the preacher was saying, I understand why you would be suicidal, the things that happen to you, right? Then all of a sudden it was his time to speak up and say something like, yes, I know, understand her viewpoint and understand his viewpoint. Instead, he said, I'm on his side, right? So then it was strange, I knew then that I didn't belong, everything was just swept under the rug, and I was started being viewed as being stupid, not a good person, and all that at my viewpoints. So, exactly, exactly. And my thing, I kept having that little voice telling me, give them another chance. Go in there and tell them that you are doing this to bring awareness, to share hope, to share motivation, for people to keep going. Because I said, there's going to be other people. And that's what I told the preacher. There's going to be other people that's going to come in here that have been abused. They're going to need the help. They're going to need it. You're right. Nobody can judge until they have walked a mile in your shoes. Exactly. And so, no matter what they say or do, I'm going to keep fighting the fight, keep going the way I am. And unfortunately, they're not changing their ways, no matter how much you try to say. And so, I really don't feel they're really of Christ, of God. That's my own perceptions. There's a lot of people that goes there, but they need to listen to it from somebody's perspective of how they are treated. And it was kind of crazy when I was going to church pretty regular when I was married. if they had a person who said that, oh, she just got out of the hospital because she going through some emotional problems, go and give her support. So I'll walk up to her because I understand, about needing emotional support, you know. So I would go up and I would shake her hand or tell her that I'm there for her. She needs a call me. The minute I walk in the door, the phone rings and it's one of the elders, and I'm reprimanded because they allow me to go to church, but I'm not to talk to nobody at church. I am to come and I am to leave. I was not to talk or communicate with anyone. So, so much for me trying to give support to somebody that's. So I even got reprimanded for that, y'all. And I also got reprimanded for telling on the preacher who also he pushed me on the desk and he climbed on top of me and asked me where I wanted something. I was suicidal at the time, and but he said he was trying to take something out of my hands, and I didn't have nothing in my hands, and I told the elders and everything about what had happened, and but I was the one reprimanded, and it was kind of crazy. About a month later, it came out that that pastor was having sex with another person that went to that church. He was having an affair on his wife. So that came out. So it just goes to show. And some of the people that there was a couple people that were friends of mine that did stand beside me, and they ended up leaving when I left too. And now my boys are so stricken against that religion because he's like I was talking to one of them yesterday, and I said, son, it was different when we were younger and we were taught this from that church. And then when you're older, then all of a sudden they tell you completely different. Like God don't live within our heart, which the Bible speaks that He does, and all this other kind of stuff. He don't work that way. Miracles don't happen anymore, and all this. And I'm here to tell you, miracles do happen, big time. You keep fighting the fight. Thank you. We need women like you, darling, to speak up. They were gaslighting you. They were doing. I think they wanted rid of me. They wanted me to go ahead and do something to myself, so that just to shut me up. Like I said, they knew my husband was beating me. They knew that I had broken bones. They knew um, the different stuff that was going on. They knew about it. Even the lady had asked them to go ahead and please, she would be a mediator in our marriage and for the elders to get involved, and that she'll be glad to mediate with our marriage. And the preachers and the elders and everything denied it. They said, we ain't going to help that. She just needs gone. We just need rid of her. That's the one to chat what was going on in my world, and the Creator told me. Oh my goodness. That's horrible, Kiki. You can always feel free to talk about it here, or I had went to a friend of mine was is getting rid of her stuff. She's got a business, and she's got this heavyweight blanket like thing, and it's black and it's blue. Okay, but I think of it as a survivor, child abuse awareness, because the blue ribbon, and it says proud supporter of you. And I said, well, you know, I need to get that washed really good. And I want to have that proud supporter of you behind me in some position where it can show that I am a proud supporter of whoever I'm talking about. I'm a proud supporter of anybody that comes in, and I'm proud to support you, Kiki. You are worthwhile, you are cared about, you're loved. And you know what? If that creator tells you to delete it, I would say, well, goodbye. If you cannot be yourself and you cannot, as long as it's not damaging or defamatory to anybody, but you are worthwhile. Jackie, you are worthwhile as well. I thank y'all so much for everything that y'all do and are doing to help. And so God bless y'all. We'll go ahead and end this. Don't forget to say prayers for little Summer and these other missing kids and these other kids that are getting abused. Even for us, the people that have survived it, we still need prayers because it is still grueling because so many people that go against us for sharing our stories. Thank you so much, Jackie. Lots of love to you. Bye for now.